What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. So, look, y'all, Kevin Garnett has said a statement that is really controversial, right? He basically said that Derrick Rose needs a statue in the city of Chicago. And so, a lot of people, and I knew it was going to be a lot of detractors and naysayers saying, well, he only had 3 All-Star selections, he was league MVP, but, they made a few playoff runs, but he didn't do enough for the Chicago Bulls organization to get a statue. He didn't win any championships. They didn't go to the finals, etc. Really, and who knows what would have happened, because I believe he would have at least gone to the finals at some point and broke through if Derrick was able to stay healthy, because of how dynamic he was, how no guard could really contend with him and stay in front of him. Nobody could guard him. No guard could guard him at all, right? He was a dynamo. He was absolutely explosive. But nonetheless, he did get hurt. But I'm gonna say this, man. The Bulls don't have to give him a statue, but Derrick Rose deserves a statue in Chicago, Illinois. Period. Like, just all in all, he deserves a statue. If Rocky, a fictional character from a Sylvester Stallone movie, can have a statue in Philadelphia, Derrick Rose, a real live individual that we saw rise from Chicago public school to the NBA, become a league MVP as a Chicago public school kid, right? Yeah, he need one. He needs one. Kids born in the late 90s, in the early 2000s, they don't have no recollection of Michael Jordan beyond watching YouTube film and what their dad told them. The young kids watch Derrick Rose. These young kids born in the late 90s, early 2000s or whatever, especially the ones in the late 90s, they were at these games he was playing at Simeon. Their father and uncles was taking them to Simeon High School to watch Derrick Rose play. They was watching Derrick Rose play on TV, Channel 19 in Chicago. They was watching Derrick Rose play when he played against Oak Hill on national TV on ESPN. They watched Derrick Rose at Memphis, at the University of Memphis. They watched Derrick Rose rookie year, second year, MVP season. They watched that. And Pooh, that's Derrick Rose's nickname, he was the catalyst for a lot of the young kids in Chicago to really start, making an extra stride to get to the league. After Derrick, Anthony Davis came next. You had Jabari Parker, Jaleel Okafor, Kendrick Nunn, Taylor Horton Tucker. You had a long string of kids. Ayo Dosunmu played for the Chicago Bulls, went to my high school, Morgan Park High School. You had a long line of kids from Chicago, Zach Norvell, going to the NBA, really watching the example that Derrick Rose laid, the foundation he laid. You know what I'm saying? Young basketball in Chicago owe a lot to Derrick. The kids in the late 90s, early 2000s, they didn't watch Mike. They watched Derrick. They watched how he did it. He did it with leading with humility while still being a superstar of the highest magnitude. They watched him develop his game, work on it, even through injuries, right? Become a guy who was a reliant jump shooter, a guy who could knock down. He was always good at the mid-range. You start shooting solid from the three-point line. Still was able to transform his game after, some of the athleticism slowed down due to the knee injuries, and still was able to be a starting guard in Detroit. When the Knicks, Derrick really helped to lay the foundation for the current New York Knicks team. Derrick was 2021 that year? Was it 2022, 2021? Derrick was really the guard getting busy for the Knicks off the bench, giving them a spark on their offense all the way through, sparking their offense up. He was one of the most reliable scorers on that team. But anyway, I'm saying the young shorties in Chicago, they look to Derrick. Even again, me as a kid, man, he really gave the city hope. When he got drafted, a lot of shorties felt like it was possible because, again, we've had a lot of talented players come from Chicago. Derrick is the first one that came from Chicago that went to Chicago public school, because Zeke, best player to ever come from Chicago as far as accolades go, I feel like Derrick probably would have surpassed him had he stayed healthy. But nonetheless, Zeke is the most accomplished player to come from this city, right? Zeke didn't go to Chicago public school. He from Chicago, West Side to be exact, but he went to St. Joe's, right? Derrick was from Chicago, went to Chicago public school, Simeon, was in the same hoods we was living in like that. You feel me? Went to Memphis, #1 overall pick, rookie of the year, league MVP, first Chicago public school kid. I remember being league MVP for real. You know, and so when people watched him do that, it was a different type of aura around the city, man. Like Chicago was smiling with pride when we saw him, man. When we saw how, like, look how people talk about Derrick. Not even just people from Chicago, for real. More than people worldwide talk about Derrick the same way. But people in Chicago, we feel that shit a little different. Because we watched him. People was watching him in elementary school at Beasley. You know what I mean? Like, Derrick means a lot to this city. When you ask people, and you know when people was booing him when he got hurt, them motherfuckers that was booing him, they not from real Chicago. They not from Chicago. We from inner city Chicago. Them people that was booing him was motherfuckers from Skokie, Waukegan, and stuff like that, and Joliet. No disrespect to them, I'm just saying. Schaumburg, you know, and all them other different places far out. Garnett. People from Chicago, Southside, Westside Chicago, we wasn't shitting on Derrick and trashing him. Because we know what that boy what that young man really overcame. Life and poverty. And really took it to the next level. Then when I'm watching him in interviews, the way he grew as a man, went from being a real camera shy, introverted kid that was not really that well spoken because he was so shy and so afraid of like that type of camera type time. You know what I mean? He wasn't timid on the court at all. You're not going to make it in Chicago being timid on the court for real at all. But he didn't like the cameras and all of that. Now I watch him be able to articulate himself like in extremely great fashion. And that's something that he talks about patting himself on the back for, being proud of. He's able to articulate himself in ways that he once couldn't. You know, and when you see his growth, maturation, he's a family man, married man now, doing it for his kids. You even see the co-parenting that he displays with his first child's mother. And, you know, the way he sets it up with his wife and his child's mother. And, hey, man, Derrick does a lot of things the right way. The philanthropic work, taking kids from Simeon over to Africa, fixing up Murray Park, like doing a lot of stuff for a lot of people, always gracious with the fans. He deserves a statue here. It don't got to be from the Chicago Bulls. And if it's not from Chicago Bulls, I understand, even though they need to retire that number. They do need to retire that number. But if it ain't from the Chicago Bulls, City of Chicago need to have a statue of Derrick. Because again, man, a lot of these young shorties, they really honed in on the hooping for real and like tried to really stay focused within it. Derrick was really one of the stories where, because there was a lot of great hoopers that come from Chicago, but we had a lot of tragic hoop stories. Kids letting the fame get to them, derailing them, knocking them off track. People having the wrong crowd around them, you know, and basically fall into the wayside. Derrick was the one who had the hype as a kid, hype as a high schooler, and did the right thing with it all the way through. He saw it all the way through and delivered for real. Before the injuries, he was delivering hard, like he was delivering in extreme fashion, high fashion, man, like in an exemplary fashion. He was delivering, and a lot of people like, yo, no, Pooh had the hype, but he made it though. Like he saw it all the way through to college for that year, to the NBA, Rookie of the Year, League MVP, 3-time All-Star. He was building on that, man. And a lot of the kids like, yo, a lot of the kids from Chicago saw that and said, yo, I got to stay focused. I got to get to where Pooh got. We got to get to where he got. You know what I'm saying? So that's when you seen Anthony Davis, Jaleel Okafor, Jabari Parker, Zach Norvell, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Ayo Dosunmu. You know, you saw these great talents from Chicago after Derrick. You know, and I got Kendrick Nunn. You got to give shout out to Derrick because Derrick really was the blueprint for a lot of the young kids. He was, and he still remains the blueprint for a lot. He still remains that. Even now in retirement, even well beyond his glory years, he remains the driving force, the motivation for a lot of the young kids here. Not even just in Chicago, though, but worldwide for real. Like, Derrick was still having one of the highest selling jerseys in the league. You feel me? Years after him being a league MVP, people were still trying to vote for him to be an all-star. The fan votes because he's that beloved. And it's not a watching dude play, man. If you really live through that, you can watch the highlights for real. The NBA put up highlights of him after he retired on a page. Watch his highlights and watch how he was playing. Watch how he was moving. Watch how people couldn't stay in front of him. Watch how he could get up the court in 3 freaking dribbles. Special talent, but again, an even more special human being. You know what I mean? A selfless person all the way through and through. Everybody that I know, Derrick didn't pay for funerals here in Chicago. People don't know about. He taking care of a lot of people here in Chicago. Looked out in a lot of ways. Still continues to look out for his alma mater, Simeon High School. One of his best friends, Tim Flowers, is coaching that program. And doing it, man, like I remember watching Simeon win a state title. And Simeon blew the other team out. Blew him out the water by like almost 30 points, something like that. Derrick had 2 points. And it was only because he wanted the rest of his team to get off and explode and have a great career day. He knew he was going to Memphis. He knew he was going to the league. He knew he was a McDonald's All-American. He had nothing else to prove on that level. He let Big Tim, Kevin Johnson, Brian Orange, Brandon Hall, he let them get off. Because he like, yo, I got it locked up. Y'all do y'all thing, man. It's y'all day. So that speaks to the character and the humility of him. But again, he the one that was the catalyst for a lot of these young shorties to get to the league. They looked at him for inspiration. They looked at him. They watched him play. Young kids, young kids, you know. Shout out Derrick. He need a statue here.